Hello, everybody. It is the week of Friday the 13th. So I am going to be ranking my Friday the 13th movies from worst all the way down to best. And if you're a Friday the 13th fan, you know there's a lot of these suckers. So we're going to get right into it. There's 12 of them. Let's start right off the bat here with number 12. The worst, in my opinion, of the bunch is Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. I could talk about this movie a long time, but basically, let's just get into some of the reasons why it's the worst. Number one, the title. Obviously, if you're a fan of the franchise, you know it's very misleading. It should be called Jason Takes a Boat Ride to Manhattan. People have talked about that at nauseum, so I'm not going to go into it. But basically, this whole movie's garbage. Jason teleports. He's wet the whole time. The ending, toxic ooze turns Jason into a little boy again. What? What? Yeah, I could go on, but it's honestly not worth my time. So that is why it falls at number 12. Coming in next, might be a surprise to some people, but at 11 is going to be Freddy vs. Jason. Now, I will admit, this can be a fun movie. It's kind of like a comic book version of a horror movie. And the acting's actually pretty decent. But to me, it just kind of feels more like a nightmare movie than a Friday movie. I'm not a big fan of Ken Kersinger's portrayal of Jason, so it falls in at number 11 for me. Moving right along to number 10 is going to be Part 7, The New Blood, or Jason vs. Carrie, if that's what you prefer. The characters in this movie are some of the worst in the franchise. And we're talking about Friday the 13th, so that is pretty bad. But yeah, so this movie is terrible. It's Kane Hodder's first portrayal of Jason, so that's significant. I am going to admit I'm not a big fan of Kane Hodder's Jason. I love the guy as an actor. He does a lot for the horror community, but I'm just not a fan of his Jason portrayal. It's cool that he, owned the part and things like that. And maybe it's just because he's in all the older movies, which are obviously a little shittier. But he just doesn't really do much for me as Jason. I prefer some of the other ones, which we'll talk about in a bit. But the look of Jason is awesome in this, and the MPAA really hacked this movie to pieces. So all that is a reason why it falls at number 10 for me. Coming in at number 9, another hotter one, is going to be Jason X. Now, this movie is not aged well, but it's one of those movies where you gotta kind of just say it is what it is, sit down with some popcorn and kind of enjoy the show. It's fucking Jason in space in the future. This isn't Shakespeare here. So if you go into it with an open mind and just want to kind of have fun and get ready for Uber Jason at the end, the hologram scene of Crystal Lake in the '80s is pretty cool. Recreating the sleeping bag kill. It's Jason on in a space station. So it is what it is, and it falls at number 9 for me. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Jason Goes to Hell. Now, Jason's not really not really in this movie that much. He is, but he isn't. It's kind of a body snatching movie, and you don't really see Jason in the hockey mask very much at all. The look of him is kind of cool. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's cool how the mask is kind of molding into his head and shit like that. Overall, this movie actually does have some good acting. I hate, though, that all of a sudden they have Jason has a long-lost sister and a niece, and, a special dagger has to kill him. All that shit that they come up with in, the ninth installment of a franchise. That's all bullshit. I hate when they do that. Creighton Duke is fucking awesome, though. That he alone moves this up. So it falls at number 8 for me. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Part 5. So Part 5. Yeah, sorry. Lost my train of thought there. But Part 5, obviously, famously does not have Jason as the killer. They wanted to go a different direction. So you got Roy, the ambulance driver, which you can kind of see a mile away because they zoom in on his face. This movie was directed by a softcore porn director, and holy shit does it show. It's just very cheap and very dated. The kills are okay, but they kind of cut away again. So MPAA again, more butchering of this franchise. But overall, like, it's still got a little bit of the tone and the feel of the original few. So that's why it's in the middle for me. Moving right along, about halfway through here, at number 6 is going to be the remake from 2009. This movie gets a lot of flack, and quite frankly, I don't understand it. I don't think it's the best in the franchise. It obviously falls in right in the middle for me. But the characters, all I hear about is the character sucked. Trent is the worst character ever. He's so fucking supposed to be. They were trying to recreate this shit from the 80s. If this movie came out in the 80s, it'd be really good. But it didn't. I do have some issues, with Jason kidnapping Whitney, I think her name is. I do like the bait and switch at the end where you think Amanda Rigetti, or no, you think Danielle Pannenbacher, whatever the hell her name is the final girl, but then she dies and Rigetti ends up being the final girl. Derek Mears is fucking awesome as Jason. He's kind of like a backwoods survivalist, badass. So that's pretty cool. One thing I'm not a fan of is the look of Jason whenever he's got, kind of a jacket or something on. I'm just not a fan of that look. But overall, this movie's okay. As remakes go, it could have been much worse. So that's why it falls at number 6. Coming in at number 5, this is going to be controversial because this is a fan favorite. This is going to be part 6, Jason Lives. Everyone I know, every list I see has this in their top 3, top 2, even their best for people. It's just not there for me. I get it. It's fun. And the director and producers and all that said, hey, fuck it. This is, a slasher movie. Let's have fun with it. But it's just missing the serious tone. I'm a big fan of the serious tone. I'm not a fan of Jason's look in this. He's got the gloves and the tool belt and shit like that. But overall, it's very meta, very self-aware. And it just, it brings the Friday the 13th franchise, back after part 5. So it's just a fun movie. I love the portrayal of Tommy Jarvis by Tom Matthews. It's just a classic Friday the 13th movie, but it doesn't crack my top 4 quite yet. Coming in now at number 4 is going to be the original Friday the 13th. Obviously, this is famous because Jason is not the killer. It's his mother, Pamela Voorhees. Spoiler alert. But it's still got, in my opinion, probably the best feel of all these movies as far as, the isolation in the woods. It's very dark and dimly lit. You got Kevin Bacon dying. In some ways, Mrs. Voorhees might actually be a little bit scarier than Jason because she's some crazy old fucking lady, yelling, help me, in the woods, So it's a really great movie. It kind of kicked down the door for the slasher franchise. But it's not in the top 3 for me. It's at number 4. Coming in at number 3 is going to be number 3, Friday the 13th, Part 3D. This is in the top 3 for one reason only. Richard Brooker's portrayal of Jason is my favorite by far. He is fucking awesome as Jason, and he kind of created the template for Jason as we know it. It's got great kills. The harpoon gun kill, the Andy split in half, walking on his hands kill. It's just Richard Brooker's portrayal of Jason just sends this into the top 3 for me, bar none. That being said, the acting in this movie is god-awful. The less said about the 3D, the better. So it can't quite crack the top 2 for me, but it is awesome. So that's why it's at number 3. Coming in at number 2, coincidentally, is going to be Part 2. So this is the first introduction of Jason. He's obviously not wearing the hockey mask, which I didn't mention that he gets in Part 3, in case you weren't aware. But Jason's kind of a hillbilly, wearing a potato sack over his head with one eye hole. Pretty scary. But this movie actually takes everything the original did and just does it a little bit better. Ginny is, in my opinion, the best final girl in this series. Maybe the best final girl in slasher history. I'd have to think about that. But she's definitely up there. She uses her brains and wit to stop Jason. It's just a great movie. The atmosphere is fantastic. And it's just probably, one of the best slasher films ever made. So I really enjoy this movie. But it's not number 1. Number 1 is going to be Part 4, the final chapter. Not only is this movie the best Friday the 13th movie in my opinion, I think it might be the quintessential slasher movie. If someone asked me if they wanted to watch a slasher movie, this would be the movie I'd show them, bar none. You know, it hits all the boxes. Jason, played by Ted White, is the most brutal, badass Jason we've ever had. You know, he takes what Richard Brooker did, and he's just a little more evil and mean and destructive about it. Tom Savini is back to do the special effects. So the kills in this movie are easily the best in the franchise. And just the quantity and quality combined with them are just amazing. You got Crispin Glover, you got Corey Feldman. All the side characters are very watchable, which in a slasher movie is pretty great. You don't see that very often. The tone, the mood, atmosphere, everything about this movie is just awesome. So it is at number 1 on my list. So if you're watching this movie, if you're watching this video, I want to hear your thoughts on your ranking of top Friday the 13th movies. So let me know in the comments. Thanks.